a way of understanding a person who's going through a coaching process is what are their saving habits. Okay?
Yep.
And saving essentially is holding your gratification now for later. I know people will argue, why should I hold my gratification now? Why should I not just spend everything that I have for later? So the conversation then metamorphs to, what if there are emergencies that are beyond your control? Please, by all means, feel free to spend the money that you have. But in case something was to happen today, and I always give this example, if for whatever reason you're not able to wake up and go to work, do you have an alternative? Do you think you will still be on payroll? And if you will not be on payroll, what kind of lifestyle do you want to continue leading? Because when you get to the heart, and when somebody looks introspectively to say, okay, what if this happens? Am I ready? You get the person to a point of starting to really think about how they relate with money. And issues to do with peer pressure can largely contribute to how you operate with money. Yes? If you're dressing in a certain way, okay, you would want to keep up that lifestyle. We all want to look good. You all want to go to the salon once in a while to look good. But the questions you want to start asking yourself is, how? Is it affordable? And is it something that is sustainable? Okay? So when you drive the member to that age, then you get to ask decent conversation. The other question I always like to ask is, where do you see yourself after retirement? Do you want to maintain the same lifestyle? Personally, I want to live in the same house I lived in, if not a better one. Okay? Will I be able to work after retirement? So if you start asking yourself those questions, and by the way, I have a dear friend who is 72 years old. We coached together. We were in Colombia recently going through a similar coaching session. And she says, I was not born like this. She's 72 years old. I was not born like this. So lest you forget, don't think that you'll be young forever, isn't it?
You won't be the way you are.
You won't be the way you are. Yeah. And your capability to do some things diminish by the very nature that our bodies degenerate over time. What lifestyle would you want to have? Imagine me standing in a classroom teaching with a 72-year-old. She goes through a 5-day coaching class. Very fit. So she's put health first, but she also saved significantly to get to a point where she can travel the world, she can give out her knowledge and still say that she's financially safe. Today, she says, at the age of whatever finances are put in place can take me comfortably up to the age of 90. Yes? And as much as finances are a taboo, we need to start planning. When do you think you will die? And when do you think you will move from?
When do I think I will die?
Yes, those are questions we ask ourselves. Or how long do you want to live? I know it's beyond.
That's a better question.
Yes, it's how long do you want to live? And if you think you want to live this long, what is the quality of life you want to have beyond your working lifestyle? When you have those conversations, yes, Latif.
Those things, we have heard about them. Those things that you've said, people have heard those things said to them individually, in groups, through the media, for many years. What is the one thing that differentiates those that hear and then change, and those that hear and they're like, I'd like to change? Or maybe someone like, hizi stories za pesa wachana sisi. What's the differentiator? What would make you move these two people from telling you, yeah, but those things you're saying, we've heard them before. When would you like to retire? Yeah, I've heard those stories before. How different is this one from the other?
From the other ones.
Well, I can tell my own personal story then, because all my career, my working life, I've worked in the banking industry. Yes, and in banking, there's money. There's a lot of money. Unfortunately,
not yours.
Yes, you get to know later, much later in life, that this money is actually not mine. But because you're within the space, you spend money like it's available. Okay. Fast forward, as I was growing through my career, I got a bit discontented. I felt like there's something more I need to be doing. Yes? But even as you grow, and I've worked in various commercial banks here in Kenya. Even as you grow, unfortunately, my borrowing behavior was in tandem. Every time I got an increase, it was an opportunity for me to borrow and to drive the best car, isn't it? And to live in the best home, which was a mortgage for a very long time. I would say I'm lucky because, fast forward, I got to interact with people who are much older than me, who have lived longer, and for lack of a better word, Latif, the aha moment sometimes comes a bit later in life. And that's what we tell people in coaching. Please listen to us early, because if the aha moment comes later in life, you have very little room to maneuver. I was lucky to meet people who've gone way ahead in life. And their quality of life now, at 60, 70, somebody's quality of life is not something I envision. Back to how we were brought up. My dad retired at 55. And at 55, he said he's going to Shags. Our two little kids had still not gone to campus. And my mom was left with the burden. So it's like, is this the life I want to live? Because it's common. It's really common that the parents that, the generation that is before us, that's how they used to live. At 55, 60, you're planning to retire and go to the village.
Yep.
Isn't it? But as I'm interacting with people across the continent, they say life starts at 55. And that was not the vision I had at all about life. But they're showing it to you practically. And that was the moment I said, you know what? I need to change. I need to change, first of all, my eating habits, how healthy I am, but also my connection with finances. Because I know personally a lot of stress comes to me when I'm broke. A lot of it. I don't know about you guys, but I feel there's a strong correlation.
You don't like that feeling of
not being in control. There's no money.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah. So a lot of stress and illnesses, I would say, come as a result of that. Yeah. So in a coaching session, we tell them the earlier you start, the better. And there's this retirement tool actually that we use that. For instance, and I always tell myself, if I started putting a lot more money aside when I was 25, I would be ready to retire at 50. Oh, and behold, I got to know and I started when I was 39. I have a shorter time to do that, but then it means I have to aggressively work towards it. So young people are definitely our target in saccos. We want to mold them early enough. The moment you get into employment, how do we structure your mind? How do we coach you like a coach trains an athlete? That savings is part of your lifestyle. And not just savings, there's savings for emergency, there's saving for medium term, and there's saving for long term. Why? Because this is the life you want to live beyond your working life. Yes. And you'll notice many of African countries today, the life expectancy is growing higher and higher.
Yep.
To the question earlier, even if you don't want to talk about death because death is a taboo, there's through research and through trends, we know
science
roughly
is showing that
this is the way it is.
Exactly.
we live longer.
Yes, yes.
So is there a connection between financial wealth or literacy or health and mental health?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of cases of depression, a lot of cases of mental health are largely connected to financial wealth. And sometimes we coach couples. It's not easy. We coach couples. And when you go deeper, you realize that it is financial distress that is pushing somebody to the wall. You borrow until you've borrowed Tom to pay Paul until you now want to hide. Hiding means you're secluding yourself. And as you seclude yourself, all these mental thoughts come through your head. And that's when mental health, creeps in. Or an unfortunate event happens, like a serious medical condition. You may actually have saved, but then a serious medical conditions put you in a situation where it negates everything that you've done. And you have to do it. In an African context, for instance, what we call black tax today is a real issue. Me as Ndu, I may have planned myself well, but lo and behold, a family member gets into trouble. But because we are a communal society, you're forced to help. And in your forcing to help, it can be somebody very dear to you, it can be your mother, it can be your brother, your sister. You get yourself to a financially vulnerable situation. How do we move from that? Those are the questions we ask at a coaching session. And the more somebody is open, you will start to see that behavior. There's first of all the willingness, and over time behavior starts to change. I cut all my credit cards.
Yeah.
Because I had 3, 4, and it was okay. It was available. It was okay. It was affordable, particularly for a banker. The rates are much different from anyone walking across the street.
Yep.
So I was convinced that my debt is actually much cheaper and affordable, but it did not make me financial well. I would go to Java most of the time to have my lunch with my friends, and of course, because of the societal position you hold,
the bill.
I will swipe my card. I mean, and everyone is looking at you over time. You're the lady who swipes the card.
The swiper.
Yeah, you're the swiper. But at the end of the month, there's all this credit that is waiting for you, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So the faster you learn, first of all, it's okay to change friends, because it led me to, start thinking about, okay, do I want to keep some of these friends? Do I want to change my lifestyle? Today, I can sit comfortable to say some of the financial goals I have been met. It's a long way, but if my mom just makes a call and says, oh, I'm in this, I don't start thinking of borrowing to sort of my
You're
mom.
able to.
Yes, you have what you call an emergency fund kit that you can pull quickly without interfering with all the other aspects of your life.
Now, when you put money in a sacco, to get it out, you borrow. Or you have to now start a whole chain of withdrawing your savings from a sacco, which is not easy and it's not encouraged. So all these things that we're talking about, so is sacco one way of saving, or is sacco the main way of saving?
Sacco is one way of saving.
Okay.
Predominantly because of that. One, it gives you the discipline. Once you put money in a sacco, it's restricted. The money is still yours, but it's restricted. It's restricted in a way to help you inculcate that habit of saving.
Yeah.
Yes, you can access finances later at a very affordable rates. And the difference with saccos is that even as you borrow, the dividends still come back to you. So you could be paying interest of 12% per month, for instance. But this interest ultimately will come into a pool that at the end of the year, you all share as members. You share as actual funds. You also share this as a huge component of it goes back to your education. Remember, we talked about education and how it's engraved in our model as saccos. All members partake of that education free of charge, quote unquote. It's your investment, but then you have access to it. It's engraved in other issues because now saccos are stretching further. There are issues to do with access to healthcare. We're having saccos today thinking, how can we uplift hospitals that our members can go to with an insurance of as low as 300 per month? You are elevating that person's financial wellness, but also their health. How can our members access education? Quality education that not necessarily is too expensive because they are a member of our sacco. We are building schools. Saccos are building schools. Saccos are building hospitals. When you go to Japan, you have saccos that have, first of all, the financial institution. On the side, they have a hospital that all the members can access. They have schools that members can access. And it's almost an ecosystem. So we are positioning saccos to be that alternative that also now contributes effectively into the building of the economy of a country.
So you see, those are economies where saccos have developed to that area where they're offering more to members, right? What did they take to get there?
Diligence and just keeping to the principles of saccos. One of the biggest issues we have in Kenya today and in Africa is governance issues. Because saccos as a vehicle, I wish I had the numbers to portray for Kenya in terms of assets, because I know you asked that earlier. But you'll notice that the assets that saccos hold over time is huge, huge. And sometimes this responsibility is marred with a lot of governance issues. Now, with those once those governance issues arise, then we are not able to stretch beyond. And that's the message we are sending to our leaders, okay?
Yeah.
Part of what our COSCA does is training specifically for governance, good governance practices. The money is a lot. Let it not overwhelm you. How can this still translate to some of the services that we are talking about to benefit not just your members, but your communities?
Do you think it's important that all SACCO members see the potential that SACCOs have? Because there's a sense that the 14 million or so members of various SACCOs have put money there so that they can borrow, right? You put money so that you can access this cheaper credit, and that's it. Anything beyond that, you have not thought of this SACCO being a vehicle for anything else beyond that. Probably, if SACCO members and the entire population knew the potential that SACCOs have, with examples from, like you said, Brazil, Japan, and others, then they can even start thinking of who to put in the management of those SACCOs. And they'd have expectations of those who are managing their SACCOs on what we want our SACCO to do, how we'd like our SACCO to grow.
Yes, absolutely. And the education spectrum goes beyond just the normal member, but also members who are tasked to be leaders. The very nature of SACCOs is that they are member-owned, they are member benefiting, but they're also, so they draw their leaders from their own members. It's not like a shareholder model where it's a business standing and a few shareholders are members. No, any member of a SACCO can be a leader. And so our spectrum of education transcends just financial wellness. It goes beyond and says, how do we expose some of these leaders to these jurisdictions of where things are happening? That is still part of education. That's why we have what we call learn and share programs, where we have, and they're very, there are SACCOs that are run extremely well here in Kenya, very progressive, who have exposed themselves in that nature. What is happening in Brazil? How did they get there? They go and have these discussions and try and contextualize our context to what happens. Okay? There's a very progressive SACCO in Kenya today that, for instance, built a stadium. At the face of it, it might look like
the stadium.
Huh?
It's complete.
And the stadium
It's
is
complete. It's complete. Yes, and athletes, not just members of the SACCO, today are benefiting from that stadium. There was an inaugural ceremony opening that stadium, I think last year or the year before. That is part of, and there are many schools also that have been built from scratch through SACCOs. So some SACCOs are getting it. Our mandate still goes beyond how can each and every one of us understand as members of SACCOs and contribute holistically. Yes. I actually see it as an alternative to supporting government efforts.
So how do you get those who have not quite grasped it, how they can actually help people? Because the issue of trust then comes into play for a lot of people, especially if in the past you've seen one SACCO go down because of whatever the case may be, And now here we are saying that it's very possible actually for another SACCO to actually help you on your journey towards, financial literacy and wellness, towards, all sorts of things that you can actually make life work through this mechanism. And on this other hand, we've seen people lose everything. How do you get people in line?
Okay. So that's why we have major conferences, what we call annual conferences, where we bring all these leaders together. It is a great platform in our view that then positions us to have real discussions around what did not work, what worked. I'm a true example of what is working. Please, I open my doors for you to come and see. So we have instances where, because as SACCOs, we collectively call ourselves a family. When somebody is going down, we are meant to rush there and see what went wrong and call leaders to account. If it's a governance issue, if it's a physical or if it's financially related, we have mechanisms of supporting them to build them up to a place where they can fully support their members. But to your point, there's an annual conference. I would just want to use an example of the annual conference that is happening next month here in Kenya. It's a global conference that draws together over 2,000 members across the world. we are privileged that Kenya particularly is ranked top in Africa in terms of the cooperative impact, in terms of its membership in total. And so it's an example in Africa. Today, we are also creating a lot of interest outside Africa. We will have members from the US, for instance, from Canada, from Macedonia, from Ireland, coming and conglomerating together to say what is happening, what is working and what is not. That is a good forum, I would say, for leaders to just ventilate, to say, okay, if it is working in your space, why is it not working in our space? And if it's governance issues, why don't we call them out? Okay? And how can people clean house, restructure, and make sure that member funds are safe? It's one of many conferences that we hold. This particular one I'm calling out because we as Kenyans will be hosts. I'm actually honored and privileged that it is brought to Kenya today. It's a testament to what Kenyan saccos are doing. We may not be, as Kenyans, we may not be appreciative of what the saccos here are doing, but I can say they are doing a lot, to the extent that a lot more people want to come up from outside the country to learn what we are doing.
Again, the same thing is that people are coming to benchmark with us, and then they go and improve themselves, and we are still there, isn't it? What bewitched us?
Surely.
Well, I can say there are pockets of good things and pockets of bad things. We are not transporting all good and we are not transporting all bad. We are also sponges in our own space. I can say that the good things we are seeing were generically built, but we also learned a lot from other countries. Yes. And as I think those dilemma is, okay, so why is it that some people are getting it right and some are not?
Yep.
We don't stop preaching the gospel. Yes? Even in church, today you'll find one person born again, tomorrow 10, 15, like that. So we don't stop preaching. I think good over time overtakes evil if good is saturated in our messaging.
Okay. So, as we move forward, and then you ask, folks are saying, okay, so how can I actually take that first step? And there's also the issues of people saying, okay, we say plan for later, put something aside so that you can be part of it. And there's some people who are saying today, well, I have nothing.
I have nothing.
I have absolutely nothing.
Actually,
where am I starting from if I have nothing?
It's interesting. That's the first thing people tell you when they come to a coaching session. But I don't have anything to say. Is it true? We will look at how you spend your money. We will look at how you spend and you'll be surprised. Because it is what you hold dear that your money follows. What you hold dear is where your money follows. So it is those, and maybe what you hold dear is not priority in life. So when you start breaking down that conversation, somebody will have $1 to save. Yes. And even if you don't, there are people who are predominantly farmers, and they say, you know what, I'll just exchange. I'll exchange goods and that's it. In very remote countries, we say, okay, there could still be a possibility that your child can go to school with that bag of maize or with that bag of beans. There's always a way out. But to say that I have nothing to save, first of all, that's the first behavior we change. And we've been successful. We've been successful in those conversations. It's just, where is this money going? Is it important? On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing are you
to let go of this?
Yes. So you walk the personal journey.
And that's a painful bit, right?
It is painful, but
letting go is not an easy thing.
It is not easy, but what you stand to lose is more. So somehow, we get away with it. I remember I am hypertensive myself. And when I first was diagnosed with hypertension, I was told, okay, don't do this. I said, so now what is exactly what is left? But the more it's pinching you, the more you realize, okay, maybe I can make some adjustments. Similar to coaching. How are world records broken by athletes? First of all, it couldn't be done. And then the coach stretches you and you've done it. And then all of a sudden you're breaking your
able to do it.
World records.
No human is limited.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Grace, for joining us today. Grace Watsiara, Head of Programs and Business Development at ACOSCA. We've been talking about improving financial well-being through saccos. 9 a.m. Time for more.